We'll get our next question from the audience, and Ed Cross.
Hi. Graduate unemployment is on the rise. Do you think it was a failed Labour idea to encourage, I think it was 50% of school leavers to go to higher education?
Okay, graduate unemployment is at the highest it's ever been since the mid-90s. Gemma, did Labour get it right over higher education?
I think there's a lot of myths around this, actually. I think let's just start. The point of getting more people to university, you can argue about why we want more people to go. Now, there is a question around fairness, and we were talking about this before actually in the green room, that middle-class parents will have middle-class children, and there will be an inbuilt privilege in that their children, however bright or slightly less academically inclined, will have a better chance of getting to go to university than someone from a working class background. So part of the thinking around increasing numbers in that, unless you make the cake bigger, working class people their chances they're massively disadvantaged from actually getting into university, working class people compared to middle class people, so that you have to make the cake bigger to let more people go in. Now there's another problem around whether people should even go in the first place and what is the alternative. Now there is a problem in this country with people not doing, not necessarily subjects, but apprenticeships and having the skills to actually feed into manufacturing or all these different types of industry, and that we focus too much on people going to university. So I'd say that there are problems with the system. There's problems around aspiration, because people don't necessarily aspire to be an engineer or to do apprenticeship, but may aspire to go to university. I just think that is a very complicated issue, and most of it will trend around what people actually want. Do they want to go to university and read lots and come out and have a job earning 25 grand a year, etc., because that isn't going to happen anymore, because we are in the middle of a recession, because our economy is weighted too much towards the service industries, and not enough towards things like manufacturing, of which we don't have the right skill sets. So, in conclusion, you could say that perhaps we've got too many graduates, but maybe we just don't have enough jobs for graduates at the moment.
Well, then what can be done to make more jobs? What would be the Labour policy on that?
Well, I can't speak for Labour necessarily on that, but in my personal capacity, I think we've got a huge problem with a skewed economy, where we don't have enough jobs in manufacturing, where government doesn't do enough for manufacturing. We don't actually make things in this country anymore, or the things we do make is so limited compared to what it would be 50 years ago. So there is that massive problem that government isn't doing enough for manufacturing, and that we have too much of a focus on people going to university and getting qualifications for which there are now no jobs.
Jason Theo George from Conservative Future, do you think it was right to make the cake bigger?
Well, I think the cake should be big, because I think, you know, if we really want to see a more socially mobile society, there have to be opportunities for everybody to achieve whatever they want. What we should avoid doing is pushing people down paths which some may not want to go down. So that's what we have to move away from a system of telling people the only choice is university, and saying, well, university is one choice, but there are other opportunities available. I mean, I know that the government's increasing the apprenticeship scheme, so there's going to be 75,000 more apprenticeships available for the over 18s. And it's steps like that which encourage people and show people that there are other options out there. Because simply telling people that the only choice they have is university, and giving some people false hope when they then go to university and they come out and they say, well, look, I was told to go to university and I've now come out and I'm no better off than my friends who didn't go to university. And that's not fair. And so we have to make sure that if we want to create a more mobile society, which is a priority, we need to make sure the options are there, that the vacancies are there and people can go to university if they want to, but there can be other routes that they can pursue. And that's where we have to make sure we steer towards providing that choice.
So you think apprenticeships are the right way forward?
I think offering apprenticeships and increasing that scheme is definitely a positive step, because it means that university isn't just the only choice. There are routes into industry through apprenticeships and into other professions and jobs. And I think only by providing those choices can people really determine what is best for them.
Martin, how can we prevent the latest figure suggests that 45 students are chasing one job. How can we change this?
Well, I think cake is wonderful, but if you're not baking any cake, you can't have any cake. The problem with the situation over the last 13, 14 years has been that we've had cabinet ministers who went to Oxford and Cambridge. They brainstormed about how we can improve aspiration, and they decided if everyone was like us, everyone would be prosperous. And completely underfunded, completely undervalued further education and apprenticeships and vocational training, which are the bedrock of any society. 50% of the economy is not graduate jobs. No economy in the world has ever had that sort of economy, and if they did, it would be massively top-heavy. What we need to be doing now is investing in apprenticeships, investing in vocational training, assisting people in setting up small businesses, which are the largest employers on aggregate in the country, so that we can help to grow the economy, bring back a manufacturing sector, bring back, get Britain making stuff again, which we haven't been doing increasingly for the last few years. Manufacturing declined under Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. None of those guys addressed the problem. This coalition government has to do that.
Gemma?
What I would say is it's all very well and good saying we need to have more apprenticeships and more jobs in manufacturing, but unless the government has a strategy for growth, you won't have any. And that's the problem. There is no strategy for growth.
We do have strategy for growth, but you can't have a situation.
Sorry, excuse me. With the cutting of capital allowances, which I don't know if you know what they are, capital allowances is the investment for manufacturing in which you get a way of getting capital into manufacturing. They've been cut. They massively affect manufacturing, as will changing all different types of taxation around manufacturing. Also, the exchange rate is a huge thing for manufacturing, and with the only way for that to be wrestled with is through changing the interest rate. It puts manufacturing in a really difficult position. All they want is stability and vision and a plan, and they don't see any of that coming from government.
So what you're saying is you want to make it more expensive for companies to lend money in order to grow by increasing interest rates.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, they're saying that you're limited. They're saying that what government is doing is extremely limited and not helping them. They need stability, and they need vision and growth, which they say that there isn't.
The worst plan for growth is just across the Irish Sea in Ireland. They didn't tackle the deficit. Look at them now. They had to have a bailout from the IMF. I'm sorry, guys.
They're saying give the money to banks. They say the banks will not lend the money.
Well, the banks have to lend. We are taking action on the banks.
They should never have gave money to the banks. They should have given it. They should have invested the money.
Can I just jump in actually? Because I'm not sure who they are. Because unemployment is a lag factor in any recession, and the figures that we see today are actually a reaction to the policies of Labour, under which youth unemployment rose 40% whilst Labour was in government. And what we're seeing now is an increase in vacancies in the economy, whilst unemployment is sadly going up. However, as was said earlier, the government is taking steps. They've introduced a work programme to ensure to help people come off welfare and gain gainful employment. They've cut the labour jobs tax, the national insurance rise, and they're stopping. They're reducing corporation tax to help small businesses start up. So these are the steps. To say that the government has no policy is absolute nonsense, and it's not fair because they are taking proactive steps to deal with the legacy that we've been left with.
Can I just answer that in a non-party political way and say that because again I'm not seeking anyone's votes, and I think there's a consensus here because it's very politically dangerous to suggest that too many people go to university or equality is a bad thing or anything. I think it's a ridiculous target, 50% of the population going to university. When I went to university, the problem was it was too full of the wrong kind of people, i.e. people who didn't want to read books, study, work hard, and really didn't have an intellectual outlook on life and should have gone and done something else. Most of those were the middle class people, and it wasn't full enough of the people that I knew who were very bright, who I went to school with, who didn't even go to the sixth form, the working class people. And I don't know about the policy to deliver that, but what I do think is that what I know from universities, standards have gone very far down. What we have done is not recognise, I think, that it's perfectly okay to say that some people in our society, a small group of people, maybe even a sort of elite of a kind, have got intellectual capacity, and those are the people who should be in what we think of as universities. They should be studying difficult subjects, reading books, producing written work, thinking a lot. There are lots of other people. Now, we've muddied the water. We've got rid of polytechnics for a start. I mean, what you lot are doing in this university is very much what was being done in polytechnics when I was young, and it was great. Polytechnics were fantastic places, but because of this sense that everyone should be middle class or more like a cabinet minister or more like a sort of faux Oxbridge person, we've decided that everyone should go to university, get a degree. You've had to push the standards of degrees down. The written standard of students' work is very poor. The people don't work hard enough, don't try hard enough at those things, but they also don't value all the other brilliant things that you could do. I like to hear you say, talking about being an entrepreneur. You don't need to go to university to do loads of great things, including craft. At the same time, we've had a complete loss of the sense of a kind of working class sensibility which valued labour that you need to go into people who work in, you know, car factories or, you know, difficult jobs, but there's a craft to it as well, building ships, doing fantastic stuff, which we've lost that as well, so no one wants to do that either. So I don't know how to fix it, but I think the target is ridiculous, and I think the loss of higher education and the polytechnics was a very sad loss, and it's backfired very badly, and we can see it now in the contraction of the university sector and the fact that lots of people who thought a degree was going to guarantee them a job that they didn't have to get their hands dirty or work particularly hard, it's come as a bit of a wake-up call.